Okay, we're back to a painting video after quite a long break. I've been very busy recently, so it's and being the summer as well. And today we got a Song of Ice and Fire from Simon Games and some Lannister characters. We've got Cersei, who we're going to be painting. It should be relatively quick to do Cersei. And I've got one of the Mountain's Men that I'm going to be painting. Now, just to show you what I've done so far off camera. So I've painted, I'll be able to show this, painted the mountain and some of his men. So this is the colour scheme. Contrast paints. Have you been using Agrax Earthshade as a wash to help? But effectively, this is what we're going to be painting and carry on painting. Quite a lot of models to paint, of course. So, without further ado, let's get started. And I'm going to start with Cersei and the skin tone on Cersei. Now, she's got quite fair skin. So, I'm going to go with Gilliam and Flesh, which is quite a light tone flesh. Cersei being nobility and not weathered skin, as it were. So going straight onto that Wraithbone spray, which is the undercoat for this, as always. And there's a fair amount of skin showing here from Cersei. This was Zenithal highlighted a little bit, to be honest. It had grey, but I've mostly got the Wraithbone on there. So there's a little bit of grey, which will show through. Zenithal is when you use a darker primer and then you spray from the top, or a 45-degree angle, a lighter tone, and you can keep going with that depending on what kind of effect you want. But because I bought this second hand and it had already been primed grey, I decided just to get the kind of Zenithal onto it. Ish. I mean, it's not a true Zenithal primer I've done here. Okay, hands. And recommendation is to get yourself one of these Winsor & Newton Series 7 brushes. I got it off eBay, but it's so nice to paint. You got such a great tip. It's a Kolinsky sable brush, and it's about £10, 10 to 12 pounds to buy. So they ain't cheap, but my God, are they good! By far the best brushes I've ever used. They're watercolouring brushes by trade, I suppose, or normally, but they work fantastic with acrylics and contrast paints. So this is Gilliam and Flesh, and there you go. There's Cersei's skin tone done, and then we'll move on to. I realise there's a bit of flashing on the screen. I think that might be. Hang on. Could be to do with this. Or it might be the light. I'm not sure if that's coming out. I've seen a bit of flashing going on, but I don't know if that's true. Anyway, so we're going to take Cersei off for a second and talk about an armoured knight. So this guy is mostly metal. So we're going to get away from Gilliam and Flesh. You need a silver acrylic paint, so I've got lead belcher. I don't use the Kolinsky for metal because of the nature of the paint with the metallic aspect of it. I don't want to ruin the brush, so I've got a different brush. Again, quite a small brush-ish, but one that I don't mind using for the metal. It needs to be watered down a little bit to help it flow. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the metal on first. I'm going to start with the metal. Now that's not all metal, that's just the breastplate. And to be completely honest, you won't see the really good effect until you've put the contrast onto this metal. It'll look a bit like silver plastic, I guess is a good description. Just keep making sure you're using enough water to thin the paints as best as you can. You don't want it too watery that it doesn't basically coat the miniature, but you do want it to be pretty thin. Saying about there. Trying not to get it on anything, of course, because we don't want his non-metallic colours looking metallic, ideally. And this is a base coat, so even though we want it to be metal coloured, we are going to go over this with a contrast paint of a silicon grey. Now, I would say this is not a huge amount of time to paint a miniature. It would probably take about an hour to paint Cersei and this knight. It's not too bad. I mean, I know there's 12 per unit. Well, less than 12, I suppose, because you've got characters and what have you. But, you know, that's 12 hours for a unit of these knights. But I think just putting that tiny bit of effort in, you know, it's not a horrendous amount extra time, then it's going to pay off when we come to it. So just continuing to get the silver on. Again, it's not the end of the world if you get it over a bit. You don't want metal over. You can just go in with a Wraithbone base and just paint this. By the way, this was base coated, not Zenithal. This is literally pure Wraithbone spray for primer. And we're going in for all the metal parts. Really great miniatures, by the way. I would say they're Simon's best miniatures. I mean, I know they do a lot of decent miniatures, Chivy style ones. Come to mind with the Acadia Quest starting that off, and now obviously things like United, Marvel United, X-Men United. Carrying on, some fantastic ones, all zombie side, of course. But you know, it's I've done a lot of painting of Mythic Games' miniatures, and I still think Mythic Games pip them. But looking at some of these miniatures, it's getting close. It's definitely getting close. As we run up, we might need some more silver now. Plug it around. Cool, that's done. Yeah, we're going to need to see some more metal. I'm definitely going to need a new lead belcher relatively soon, especially if I've got all these knights to paint. I'd recommend just cleaning your brush out every so often, periodically, just to keep the bristles fresh and separated. You don't want it drying up at the base of your brush. And you see how easy the paint is flowing. It's because I'm keeping it wet. You've got to keep your paints wet, especially your pure acrylics. Obviously, contrast does it all for you, but for this, you need to make sure it's you keep it wet, keep it flowing. So we do the chainmail now. And this is quite an easy one to paint because of the sheer area of the metal work on this miniature. Take the time now to get this base on and do it relatively neatly. Then that will really help speed things up as you go through the miniature. Full metal legs as well. Again, if you don't get every single part of the miniature with this lead belcher, it's not a massive problem because you're going to be going over it with basilicum grey, so that will pick out any details. It'll go into any recesses that didn't get, like the chainmail or whatever it might be. And that's the beauty of contrast, is it'll literally just cover up any bits you missed out anyway, which is really handy. Makes things a lot easier. Need to base all of these miniatures, obviously. That is yet to be done. But I was going to wait until I painted a unit, and then I can just go ahead and block mass base the whole unit. This game, Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, has always been on my radar. I'm a really big Game of Thrones fan, and it looked like such a good game, but it was always the price point, and another game, obviously. However, I managed to have a demo game very recently, and I loved it. How streamlined it was, the fact you've got tactics cards, you've got the NCU, the non-combat units, which work on a council board, which influences the battle on the field, so it's not purely like that. And there's a lot of combos, so it's got a lot of replayability. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be times where you'll have the perfect combination, like in many miniature games, which will be very hard to beat in competitive tournament play. But as a game to play, I really liked it. So when I saw this was second-hand copy was available, I was like, I have to get that. If not for just the miniatures alone. Okay, so that's the silver painted on the knight. Good clean of the brush. Then we go back to Cersei. So of course, her hair, her iconic blonde hair. So you go for something like a Yandin yellow, which is a really nice, bright yellow, vibrant yellow, and then thin it right down with contrast medium. That's how I'm thinking of getting her blonde hair. So we'll go with the blonde onto there. And then make sure to clean brushes with just water in between. Now contrast medium, I'd say about the same amount of contrast medium as you put paint. Should be about right mix. Okay, let's see what we got here. This might still be way too yellow. Yeah, more contrast. So perhaps more contrast, 2/3 contrast medium to 1/3 actual Yandin yellow. Still going to be yellow, but we can put a wash onto this to make it a little less, so that's better. Now the contrast medium means that you're going to get the contrast paint still working the way it should. Do not use water to thin down contrast paints, because it's the reactants or something in the paint, and it'll just stop that from working. So you won't get the desired effect you want from a contrast paint, and the whole point of using contrast paints, of course. That's way too much paint. I'll tell you what, we'll carry on this for the hair of the knight that we've got as well. There we go. Cersei's blonde hair. And we are going to darken that, don't worry. And while we've got the colour mixed, we're going to go onto our knight and use the same paint to do his hair. And to be honest, this is a lighter shade than the skin, so the skin will show through if we make any mistakes. There we go. He's going to stand out, isn't he? Again, we can darken the hair colour, that's not a problem. And now, of course, the iconic red dress. Lannister colours. Going in, no holes barred with red, Blood Angels red. It's a very vibrant red. It's a great paint, one I use a lot. And we're going to go through the whole lot. So when I said this is, I might do a different trim perhaps. I might do a darker trim. Now again, especially with the red, you want to try and do this all in one go. Don't split it up because it will show. And I want vibrancy here. Again, probably will go over with a wash just to darken the tone slightly, or with a maybe skeleton horde or something, just to darken the red, although I don't want the vibrancy of the red to disappear. So maybe not. And this obviously, just like in the films and everything else, the red will really offset her hair color, which is kind of going to be cool. Really shows her as a Lannister. Just deep red. Now you could go slightly mix this red and get a bit dark, a bit more like mahogany, I guess. If you don't want it so bright. But I want her to stand out. She's one of my favourite characters from the TV show. Cersei, absolutely brilliant. Along with so many characters, that's what makes the show, really. Is that not going in there? Maybe it is. As we go around and under there. Just being careful because obviously we don't want to go over the hair we just done, or but like I say, we also want to make sure through this first coat that we get everything. Just a bit on the sleeve there. Bit there. I mean, it's a very, very dark pigment coloured, is this Blood Angels red. So it's not the end of the world if you have. Oh, did I just gone over all the hand? Or did I not? No, I didn't. Thought I did then. So yeah, it's not the end of the world if you have to go over certain little tiny bits. It's just best if you can try and get the whole miniature. So I'm just out of camera shot here, just why I just do the little intricate bits. Be pretty liberal with the paint, of course. Contrast paints. they'll go into the recesses and give you that, hopefully that really nice vibrant colour, and take on the contrasts of the different recesses, and they'll pull there as long as you use enough paint. So kind of don't be afraid to use it. The more paint you use, the more difference in contrast, I guess. So I perhaps haven't used enough paint myself here, but coming towards the tail end of this miniature. And then we got the delicate detail work of the brim, I guess, of her dress. Now just checking here, I've got the front, obviously. Okay, so just finishing off the hem bottom here. There we go. And obviously, being not on the field, very unlikely, she's going to have a different base. So we don't actually have to do any, I'm not going to bother doing any base work. I'm going to use the texture that's on the base and just do it as a normal grey contrast. So that'll be easier. Got a bit of that. Right, we need to just get this done. So just using one of these holders really helps, because it gives you really good stability to do detail work. I also these miniatures as well. The thing I really appreciate about these miniatures is they're really good scale, nice chunky. Wow, 32 mil, I think. So you got decent areas to paint upon, and I'm just going over that brim now with the dress, like so. Yeah, this looks good. And there's a red dress. I'm gonna let that dry and do its work. Now, because Mountains Men don't actually have red on them, they're yellow, because they're the Mountains Men, we can move on to our soldier. So he's got slightly darker skin tone I'm going to do, so I'm going to use Dark Oath Flesh. And the flesh tones that the Citadel Contrast range have are really good. I really do like them. I think they, for those, one coat wonders, they really do work. There we go. He's got proper blonde hair. Brilliant. I will be shading that, I think, because it looks like ice cream on his head, as well as Cersei. So we'll be using some washes to try and darken that a little bit, or maybe even Skeleton Horde. I'll have a little think. So this yellow, we're going to go back to Iyanden yellow, and we're just going to go straight on with Iyanden yellow now. So this is for all of a few things, for a few different parts of the miniature. First of all, these kind of leg plates, I guess. So give those a good yellow colour. And then you see this tunic. We're going to do this one in yellow too. And just watch as this yellow just gets into those recesses perfectly. We are going to put a wash on as well, because we don't want it to be bright yellow. So a wash will be used. That Agrax Earthshade will be used to help on to paint this as well. I'm trying not to go over the metalwork here because I don't want it gold particularly. Okay, so that's the yellow done. And the plan will be to just get some different browns on this next as we move through. So let's go on to that straight away. And he'll look a bit, he won't look very done until, as I say, until we've done that silver work. So let's start with some wildwood. Really nice for wood, brown for wood, but also works well for leatherwork, belts and stuff like that. For that nice deep brown, kind of reddish brown, I guess. So starting with the belt over here in the middle. Oops, I didn't want to actually paint that bit. Never mind. Get in there as well. Just being careful not to get it everywhere. So just on the straps. Also this bag, I'm going to do as I have done for all of them. Again, making sure I've got a decent amount of paint on the brush. Not horrendous amounts, but enough that I don't have to keep dipping in every time. That I can let it flow and let it do its work. That's pretty terrible, never mind. Just in the middle there. Now if you make a mistake, I'll show you. You just wet your brush and then hit in with a little bit of water and then use your brush to take away the mistake. It's quite a lot of paint, so yep. And that'll kind of erase mistakes, as it were. Again, water's not contrast paints frames, so if you can use that, that helps as well. Strapping wise, has he got any straps? Yes. So I'm just going to do his elbow straps. Right, trying to really get in. Sometimes it's hard to get to places, obviously, with an assembled miniature. But so far, touch wood, these have been pretty good. Okay, that's the straps done, and that's the wildwood done. After wildwood, we're going to go in with a deeper brown for some other parts, for effectively most of the rest, if not, yeah, apart from the bags. So a really nice, very dark brown is a Cygor brown. Now, of course, you can mix paints to get whatever colours you want, but he looks a bit like Jaime Lannister now, doesn't he? Apart from a little bit haggard on the face. And then this is going to go on the other parts. And this brush really making the job a lot easier. And we're just going to try and go up in the corner there, the arm. Same here, just give that almost like a dark lining. Then in here as well. Oop, a little bit out there. This is where it gets a bit more tricky. You're using the tip of the brush to try and hit just the bits we want. So sorry if this is a little bit out of shot. I'm trying to hold the miniature so I can do this relatively well. Whoops. And there you see I did jigger quite heavily. So just take that brown off there and then back on. Awesome. Looks fine. Let's go to the other arm. And as you start to paint more and more of the miniature and get rid of that white, your miniature will start to look better and better every single stage. And in the inside here as well. Oh, wow. Don't know how I did that. Gave the sword a nice huge coat of brown. Must have just caught the sword with my brush. It's sticking out quite a bit. Again, that doesn't really matter too much. If you did that and left it to dry, you can always just go over it with your lead belcher again, or your silver acrylic paint. Oops, didn't know. See, I try to force that into the just use my fingers there. I tried to force that into the white that was left on the metal there. Oh, man, I'm having trouble trying to keep off that metal, aren't I? Let's try that again, unless third time's a charm. So be a little bit more careful this time. It's better. And as always, real-time videos is what I do. So you can always skip ahead or paint along at the same time. But hopefully you'll see how quick contrast paints are using pure contrast with a little help from some shades. You'll see it in a bit. What's next? The bottom and the top of the belt. Do in this. And also these things as well. Let's do the belt first, and we can focus on that next bit afterwards. Okay, so now just really just using the edge of the brush, well, the tip of the brush I should say, sorry, to kind of go around the edge of this. And you can just see how good that tip is of this brush. Oops, well, that was not very good. Which is fine. Perhaps just a bit up there. Whoops. That's all right, I don't mind too much. I mean, it's not a signature character, so. I've just gone over the sword, but that's fine. We can sort that out now. Just to get rid of that brown. There we go. Okay. And just see it under the oh, yeah, we need to do that. So trying to get this brown under there. Next, like so. That's it. And under there, I completely missed this bit. Okay, and in there, some more of this. Can be really hard to get in without ruining it completely. But again, just don't panic, just get straight on with that water and try and do the bit you need to do. That's pretty good. Probably just take it's fine. Okay. Awesome. Those bags, belt bags he's got. We're going to go in with snakebite leather, lighter kind of yellow toned brown, which is very good for, as you would imagine, leather. And just really loading that paintbrush, so I can just use the same paint. I'm making much more mistakes than to do, but again, I won't worry too much about it, especially so with the silver. The less mistakes you make, of course, little slips or whatever, the less time it will take to paint the miniature, of course, because you don't have to continuously try and take that. But yeah, that was a bit, it's going to be quite hard to take out. There's quite a lot of paint there. Yeah, it's kind of going a bit wrong there. Oh, come on now. I'm actually going to use this just to go like this. Okay, there we go. And then he's basically ready for the basilicanum grey over the metal to really make this metal stand out. Well, not stand out actually, to make it look realistic, I should probably say. Just thinking, hand he's doing. I don't think I'm going to bother too much about the face on these particular models. So the important one to start with is basilicanum grey. We're at 39 minutes of recording, so as I say, about an hour, maybe even less. Probably a bit more than that as well, paint. So you let's just go over it, and the metallic will, because of the transparency of contrast paints, the metallic will come through, and it will give you such a realistic, beautiful colour. Now, of course, you could put, I guess, like different colours of washes and stuff to make it look used armour and all the rest of it. But I'm just going to go in with straight colours. Imagine they're just brand new onto the field. Now, to change the colour of the metal, you can use yellow. I ironed in yellow to make gold. It comes out really well. Looks like a really good gold. You can use an orange, like bloodhound orange, to make a copper. you can use any contrast color you want over metal to make different types of metal. And that's such a strength of contrast paints, is that ease of just making. And you can obviously mix your contrast paints as well, which I didn't really need to do in this particular video, to make all different types of shades. Or if you haven't got as many contrast paints as you perhaps like and that you want to get different colors, you can just mix them to get your different colors. Just don't mix them in a wet palette or with water. Contrast medium will thin the paint. Okay, next is over this shoulder. You can see that, and then like that, any bits like those little edges, add a little bit of white on them. Just go in with that basilicum grey, and it'll sort it right out. Now, not using a lot of paint on this, by the way. The more contrast paint that you use, the less the metallic color will come through, and the darker the finish. So you can kind of decide on what kind of look you want from that. But yeah, don't use loads. Just enough to make it come through and work. Legs, we're going to use a bit more for the chainmail, so a little bit more loaded on the brush for the chainmail, just to try and get in those recesses. And there's quite a lot of chainmail on this as well. But again, if there's a little bit of discrepancy between the chainmail links and stuff like that, that will look good. That's what you want, but you definitely want a contrast in there, or else it's just going to look like, well, like silver plastic, effectively. Let's go through to the plate legs. Again, you could do multiple layers, but just be aware that the more you put of this onto the miniature, the less the metallic paint will come through. But I love the fact it's just an immediate effect. Let's go through to the final leg. Okie dokie. There we go. And now that metal looks just brilliant. I love that it does the effect. And if you want to do different color metals, you certainly can. The yellow is obviously way too vibrant, but we're going to sort that out in a second. Okay, should we go back to Cersei and think about how we're going to sort her out, where we let that silicone grey dry. So with Cersei, I think we need to sort that hair out. So, Agrax Earthshade, fantastic wash. Use it for so much. And to be honest, what I'm going to do is start to do from here. We're just going to get this Agrax onto there. Not horrendous amounts, but enough to fill the detail. And that suddenly makes it so it's not too light. It's much better. Oh, sorry. Okay, so it's a bit of an Agrax on there as well. Now you can see that red really coming through. While we got the Agrax out, we might as well do the knight. Do the same thing on his hair. Now what you could do, if you don't want it so mucky, the other great wash is a Reikland Flesh Shade. Now this is what you would normally do to make flesh tones, and by all means you can do it on flesh as well, but if you want to give it some colour, maybe a little bit more colour, while it's still wet, I'm going to mix in some of this from the top. That might just give it some different colour gradations. There we go. But it'll certainly look a little bit more like a normal hair. Cool. Oh, sorry. While we've got the Agrax out, we need to do the rest of the yellow that's on his armor. So again, just getting some Agrax and just go in either these and make them. Number one, it'll even get even more contrast, but number two, just make it look a bit more realistic. As we go down and across. You can even just like start to go on some of the browns as well if you wanted to. But that's him done. And that, I believe, I mean Cersei, what I'll plan to do is by using a bit of Wraithbone base, because I've noticed there's a little tiny splodge of just tidying that up. Now, I want to do some eyes on Cersei. She's a main character, so still using this size 1 brush. Because the tip is so good, I'm going to use that. So we got a little bit of Wraithbone on there, making sure we've got a little bit of watered down. Put it onto the tip. Then, using our trusty, we want to just, best we can, oh dear. I think that was quite wet enough. Trying to do now this requires a really quite steady hand, but you're just using the tip, and hopefully she looks a bit like Daenerys. Hopefully you can get some kind of relative. I think we need to work on that left eye a little bit. Hang on a second. Let's get that again. Okay. Now this is you definitely need a steady hand. But what I'm trying to say is you don't need an insane detail brush, which I've always used for the eyes. If you get one with this good a tip, then it'll do all the work for you. Now, pupils, might be a slightly different map. Pretty happy with most of that. I might, well, I've got this Wraithbone base, I might just smarten up just the edges of this. So I'm going to go over with a grey, Basilicanum grey, for the effectively the ground, the paving. So yeah, so I've gone over a little bit of areas. I don't know if I've got enough paint here. Hopefully. Because the red, because it's so high in pigment, the red will come through. There we go. It's got a nice clean base where her dress is. This guy, he's going to have, we're going to base him with the others, so I'm not fussed about anything else. So he's done. And he can join the tray. Now Cersei, we're just waiting for that white to finish. I think we'll, now she in the film, certainly in the TV series, she hasn't got blonde eyebrows. She's got kind of like darker eyebrows as well. So I think what I'm going to do, this could ruin the miniature. Sometimes, you know, you think of doing stuff and sometimes it just ruins the miniature. I'm going to go with Agorist Dunes. So slightly yellow, light brown. And we're going to just try and put some eyebrows on her to start with. So again, using the tip of the brush. What's that even going on? Have I even got any paint on it? Sometimes it's quite hard to see, especially working at this detail. Has that even done anything? Yeah, I think so. It might be too, I think it's too light a colour, Agorist Dunes, to be honest. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so let's hit him with, oh, hang on a minute. Yep, Mr. Tiny Spot. So in with the red, next to a thumb, a left-hand thumb. God, it's so hard to see. There, done. It's better. Oops, sorry, I mean, not that. Also, there's white there that I've only just noticed on it. So this is why, you know, the camera's sometimes quite handy because you don't see it with eye. So it's only when you get a camera on it that you actually go, oh, okay, yeah, missed the whole section there, or sleeve. Awesome. It's better. Right, I think we're base dry now. So we're going to get our Basilicanum grey back. And we're literally just going to put it onto the base. leaving the rim. I want the rim to be red too. So painting in, and then the texture of the base that's already there will hopefully give the idea of a gravel or pavement or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to use normal red paint, not contrast paint, so it doesn't matter too much. The high pigment in the paint will kind of go over this grey, so I'm not too fussed about getting over the edge there. Which is good because that was horrendous. There we go. And now she's got the gravel base that she's standing on. Cersei's done. The soldier is done, and that's 56 minutes. So as I say, about an hour. And then you've got your 2 miniatures done. Let's get in a closer look. Start with Cersei. If I can get it to work. Obviously, it'll be a wet base, but so she's got her. We got the blonde hair, and then very easy because I just used a standard, just red dress. Now, obviously, it depends on what you want to do, how you want to do it. Just looking through, relatively happy with the dress. I think there's a spot of white on there that I might need to sort out. But yeah, it's Cersei, and then the knight we did. Whoops. And again, it's when you see these up close videos that you go, oh, missed a bit. I'm not happy with that. But yeah, he's looking pretty good. The metalwork's making it, of course, as he comes round. Well, there we go. So there was a couple of characters. Well, I guess a character. Excuse me, and a soldier. We're not going to win any competitions with this painting. That's not what this painting is about. This painting is about relatively fast speed with a half decent finish using the contrast paints. So I hope you enjoyed watching. It's good to get back doing some painting on camera again. Any questions, any comments, leave them in the description below, leave them in the comments below. Please do like if you think this is any good, or if you've got any ideas from it. And you know, I'm hoping to paint much more Game of Thrones certainly, and others as we go through, so hopefully get some more video content out there in the next month. Okay, thanks for watching and keep painting.